Hello there and welcome to a new build guide for Age of Wonders 4. Today I got finally something around the Merciless Slavers social trait. I think I did a really good job here. We're playing a feudal hybrid between a moral destroyer and a necromancy build, and its unique point is that it allows you to go window shopping on the enemy armies, and you can just recruit whatever you want as long as you have enough gold for it. I love this build for the fact that it is able to just pick up whatever you want. You can pick up every unit on the map except for golems and stuff that can't be scared that easily, and you just scare them into submission. Now, let's go over the details and then over the tomes. So, first off, we play here with Nightmare Mounts. I went for the Feudal Culture entirely because they have a really nice synergy with Nightmare Mounts. They have tier 2 shields that utilize these. I see that this strategy would work as well with the Industrious, as they have tier 3 shields that get these mounts, and the barbarians that get tier 1 shields that use these mounts. The feudals were for me the perfect middle ground, as tier 2 units keep their value for a pretty long time, and it's really cool to have this vicious killer thing. But like I said, check out the other cultures as well. The Nightmare Mounts are here to destroy the enemy's morale. End of the story. And Overwhelm Tactics is always a nice damage steroid whenever you play the feudals, as it is an automatic synergy with Stand Together. Enough said. Now, Merciless Slavers is the name-giving trait, and we need it. You need to unlock it via your Pantheon points, and in short, it just lets the enemy succumb to your side if they flee for gold. The other one that I pick up is Mana Channelers, as we have a lot of summonable units, and this is just a really good usage of that. I love this combination. I think there might be something more effective, probably, but I felt like this is really amazing. Maybe I'm overshooting, maybe I don't need all that extra resource, but, well, you know how it works. Tomes. Let's talk about tomes. We're playing a Shadow Order build here. Starting out with the Tome of Souls as the very first one, picked up because it offers you a nice nuke, it offers you the ability to collect souls right from the get-go, and it gives you nice shock units that you can use at the beginning of the game that are just really cool. Just don't invest into skeletons. We prefer our racial spears, as they transform into shield units at the end of their career, which I personally prefer a lot. Soul Overflow is a really nice spell, as it utilizes the massive souls that you got, and Soul Binders is a good upgrade in general, as it amps up the damage of your supporters. The second one we pick up is Zeal. Several reasons. First off, of course, Legion of Zeal and Inspiring Chant are a combo that can just carry you through the early game on their own. You get extra damage, and you get a spell that is fairly cheap and raises the moral, more crits. We already have Overwhelm Tactics, thank you, and plus 20% damage extra, which is just amazing. But there is also a nice caveat with the condemnation mechanic. Since we want to destroy the enemy's moral, and many of moral shaving effects can be resisted, condemnation is really powerful, as it makes the enemy much more susceptible to your cheese, especially the higher tier units, which are the most tasty to recruit after all. Now, there is not much more to say except for Fanatical Workforce is really cool for the feudals if you can afford it, as most of the time I end up with producing more food than I need anyways. The Zealots, I rarely use them. I wouldn't recommend them. You have most of the time much better things to do with your mana. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about these. Tier 2, we go heavy into Shadow. So the first one I would recommend you to pick up is either Doom Herald or Necromancy, depending on your situation. Necromancy is, for me, the second tome, therefore we go with Doom Herald first. Doom Herald opens up Banshees, which offer you battle mages that destroy moral. It is amazing to have these, as you now have for the first time the ability to selectively scare people via the Banshee's Wail. You can also learn Cause Despair, which is enough if spammed on the same units over and over again to rout them. And Prelude of Doom is just what you can do. to get the party started before the party even starts. Joy Siphoners and Cruel Weaponry allow you to just go for more moral destruction and more damage when the moral is low, which is outright good for this build. Doom Depth Trench is really cool, as 5 city stability isn't much of a big sacrifice for all the amazing rewards you get. Even if you are not playing Evil Alignment, a province that cranks out the returns of a conduit and a research post is a little bit broken in my book, and is even upgradable. And don't sleep on Cruel Weaponry for your heavy damage dealer heroes, it's really good. Now, Tier 2, we go into Necromancy. I pick up this tome first and foremostly for the Corrupt Souls. They are moral drainers. They can directly destroy moral by just punching people. They can also be recruited by souls. Since we run mana channelers, they are dirty cheap. They also have a nuke. Either this skill outright kills somebody, or it just nukes them, and getting the enemy on low is not hard with this build. So I discovered that these guys are ranged nukers in disguise. Okay, they can only do it every third turn, but they are surprisingly effective from the backline. So I really like these guys for what they do. Also, they have a really good melee damage, as they are tier 3 units. Necromancers can just raise up whatever died on your side, especially the corrupt souls, or whatever undead might come around, or you can utilize the enemy fallen dudes, turn them into zombies, and explode them afterwards with rotting explosion, or just enjoy them, strengthen other undead, and have some fun with it. Necromancers are really good in this build, as they power up your premium units. Raise Zombies is a cool combat summon that just costs you souls. I love it, because this build ends up with having more souls than it can possibly utilize. Restore Undead, rarely used, can be useful in fringe cases. I wouldn't research it though. Necrotic Magic is super good. Pick it up as soon as you can, because it just amps up all your supporters quite massively. And since we are able to just pick up whatever we want from whoever we want, you will find units that can utilize that. No biggie. Also, well, Soul Well is cranking out mana and souls if you need it. I mean, technically, with Soul Wells and a high amount of souls, you have access to a stupid amount of battle magic. So that's one positive. But the rest of that book isn't that massively synergistic with the build. The Corrupt Souls are just too good to pass. Now, Tier 3, we go again back into order, because there's just too much goodness to not pick up here. Tome of Subjugation is amazing, as it brings us Tyrant Knights, which are just the better tier 4 knights. We can completely replace our racial knights with these, as they can actively destroy enemies' moral by just bumping into people. I love it. Final Ultimatum is not useful at all, because we practically do that on our social trait already. The only interesting thing about it is that you can turn around a routing unit and turn it back on the enemy, but we don't need that. You can pretty much skip that spell on this build. Intimidating Aura gives all of your units finally that Intimidating Aura effect, so your nightmares are not the only effect of moral shaving anymore, and the rest of these skills are just nice to have. It's mostly about the Tyrant Knights and the Intimidating Aura in this book, but Baron's Palace, I mean, if you happen to capture cities, you can recruit stuff via gold when it routes, so gold income is good for you. Now, the other tome I recommend you to pick up on Tier 3 is the Sanctuary one, as this is now where you get really stupidly hard to kill. These enchantments in here are all making it more likely that your units will not die when they should die. They also lower their unit upkeep. You also gain a burst heal spell, which can be sometimes really good, and it's much harder to kill you on your home turf with these two spells. Sanctuaries are again really cool, as they are super effective conduits with some extra goodies on top of that. And Sanctify is another nice support spell that you can't pick up. After this, you are free to choose either to go for the tier 4 orders or the tier 4 shadow tomes. Both of them are really cool. I think Supremacy and Exaltation make up really good fits into this build, but I also want to mention that Tome of Oblivion is a real powerhouse as it offers you Insanity on top of your Fear gameplay, and there's a lot of synergy there as well. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about the roster that we play. So, in this city, you will already notice our tier 3 units aren't even available. That's because I did not pay any attention to that yet. Alright, I should upgrade my cities probably, but I was too busy cranking out mana. So, archers are pretty much... Well, if you can't get in any other archers from other sources, well, you don't have many unit enchantments synergizing with these, and altogether I see them pretty much as the least valuable bit of your build, as most of our unit synergies are around battle mages and supporters, so I don't recommend investing money into these. Peasant pikemans, though, are a real good thing in the early game, as they have feudal training and transform into mounted defenders at the end of their career. I spammed out a lot of these early on and got a lot of free defenders out of that, so that's a really nice thing. Don't invest into skeletons, as our peasant pikemen are therefore the much better alternative to choose. The bannerman keeps your troops together, as he can burst heal, punch up moral, which is good for you, and punch up your defenses. He's not the best supporter. I love to pick up other supporters from other cultures as soon as I can, but he gets the job done, albeit he's a little bit micromanagement intense. Bone Horrors are cool for the early game, but don't rely too much on them, as they eat up your mana, and they don't really lead anywhere where your build wants to be. But I discovered that the Consume Corpse skill of theirs is, for the early game, a real godsend, as your build is a little bit weaker around the edges in the tier 1 area. These Bone Horrors fill that gap exactly. Now, defenders are bread and butter units of your roster here, as they provide the much needed intimidating aura. Of course, knights fill a similar role. In this scenario, I just didn't produce any of these buildings, as I was able to pick up knights via the voluntary recruitment system. So you can totally use them because they are good, as they utilize your nightmares and they're good for your own moral. But I personally see this build revolving more around shield units and a slow and steady approach towards the enemy, where shock units in the mid and late game are easy to be lost. But that being said, they have their role. Necromancers are your offensive supports, and ideally you use them to keep your losses low, as they can resurrect people, so you can just send up your undead up front and patch them up back again when they explode, or you use combat summons. Choose that to your own liking. And the real power player in your roster here is the Corrupt Soul, as you can pretty much fill up these guys together with your shield units, and you have a massive powerhouse of moral draining here, as your shield guys just need to stand next to the people. These guys drain moral when they attack actively. If the enemy is already low on moral, they can nuke from the back line. There's a lot of goodness here, and I have discovered that a mixture of Corrupt Souls, Defenders, Bannermen, and a couple of nibbed other units for ranged support work a charm here. It's really just that easy. Now, let's talk strategy. As we are playing a feudal build, I need to cover as much map as possible early on. You are also playing a really cool build around Shadow and Order, so keep your neutral cities around you your friends, as they can provide knowledge via this shadow trade and vision via the many whispering stones that you can acquire with that build. Try to keep a low profile until you have tier 2 achieved. You will be mostly around building up cities, recruiting your heroes, and cranking up your mana, gold, and knowledge production as hard as you can, because these are the things that are just your real bottlenecks early on, and I'd strongly recommend you to just clear out your area until you have hit the tier 2 tome area, And as soon as you have unlocked the battlefield spells that like cause despair, and you have a little bit of mana left over, you can pretty much go window shopping. You like that unit, you smack a spell up front on the army, you use Prelude of Doom to just weaken them up, and then you just keep spamming Cause Despair on the unit you want to recruit and soften them up with a Condemnation from your heroes in between. By the way, your heroes. Your heroes are, in this build, again, your supporters, as your innate support isn't too good. Mass Rejuvenation is amazing, as usual. We are also relying heavily on Restore. But another really cool trick that is unique to the Feudal Culture is Undying Loyalty. This skill is nuts. I wonder how long it'll take until this thing gets nerfed, because it is just too good at what it does. It's a novice hero skill, so all of your heroes can pick it up. That is also a free action. So whenever somebody looks like he could die, just put that on top of their head and be easy with that. The more heroes you have in your army, the more cheesy you can play around that, because you can just renew it turn after turn. So it's a little bit overpowered in my opinion, but you can play around it. Most of the time I just need to put it on one person, especially useful to save up your heroes. Also, of course, combat summons never grow old. They are a constant thing that keeps your losses low. And last but not least, keep an eye out to pick up restorations here and there, as they allow you to just resurrect people if you actually manage to make a whoopsie and lose somebody you don't want to lose, and you just don't want to restart that darn battle. So all in all, this build is extremely good once it hits tier 2. But as soon as it sits on tier 1, it's just a typical swarmy zeal undead build that is good at swarming down people, but really bad at getting the job done without losing people left and right. So you should really pick your fights carefully and try to get your hands on the supporters as fast as possible. In your city development, rushing towards the Bannerman is a very, very smart choice, as I figured without these, my armies fell apart like crazy. I also want to mention that due to your many, many capabilities in vassalization, the Rally of the Liege is a potent tool to get yourselves new units as well. In the Empire development tree, you get a lot of knowledge generation skills via the Shadow Tree. Use them wisely, as they will provide you many, many things that get you faster forward, and that's just a good thing. Death magic is where you can just take over the battlefield, because there's a wicked synergy between necromantic builds and death magic, because usually you end up with having a lot of things constantly popping up and dying, and you end up having two pools, mana and souls, so you have the ability to cast a ton of spells. Seriously. So the other thing I want to mention is try to get yourself as many cities as quick as possible, because you're playing Feudal. Feudals want to have 4 cities ASAP, and usually I pick up the Adept Settlers to get that done faster, but this build, I feel like it works a lot better with Mana Channelers, as it gives you dirty, cheap, corrupt souls. One thing that I figured felt while I was playing this was a constant mana shortage in the early game. So try to play carefully around Bone Horrors, as they are quite costly at the beginning, but they are really powerful, as they only cost you souls and no gold, allowing you to just put up your gold into city development. This is a really cool little trick of this build, as it provides a lot of free units that you don't need to recruit actively in your cities. The side effect of recruiting units this way, how the Merciless Slavers build does, has also a nice little caveat that can be nicely and easily overlooked. Since we don't have to recruit units actively lots of times, we can keep this field open. So that means our cities grow faster. This is a really, really nice thing, as the feudals are already good at providing huge cities. So you can go for a territory win with this build quite nicely too, because you gotta look at it this way. Every time you have enough mana to just spit out fear-inducing effects often enough on these people to just join you, and every time you have the gold to just recruit them, you are capable of defending your turf even better. You just get free armies all day, and you can't just keep conquering, as if the AI wants to reconquer, they need to dig themselves through loads of nonsense that you have allocated over the course of the time, while your main troop stack can just lay back and keep those really nice units like nymphs that I don't have access to, or autumn fairies that are really cool. You can pick up the best of the best and just keep the rest as litter that defends your base, or just disband them if you don't need them. All in all, this build is crazy, and I love the Merciless Slavers trait for what it is, as it is an entirely different way of playing this game, and I can totally recommend it if you are in for a blast. The moment you have the fear spells online, you can just go window shopping. The moment you have the Tome of Necromancy online, you can annihilate enemies. The only downside of this build is that there are a lot of stuff like golems and other undead and whatnot, but we are really well able to take these down, as golems are usually susceptible versus magic, so our many damage types of the necromancy books will come in handy, as we have access to Soulfire, we can do blight damage, we do frost damage, we have a lot of elemental damage in our pockets, so even these guys are no insurmountable problem. And the rest of the enemy, everything that can be scared, have fun with it. It's just amazing, and I was enjoying this run thoroughly. Thanks for watching. I really, really hope you enjoyed. Consider leave me your comments. I really hope you're going to leave a thumbs up, or consider subscribing. Check out Patreon, PayPal, and buy me a coffee. If you'd be so kind, I'd be very, very happy. And a big, big thanks to all of you supporting. I deeply appreciate. And a big, big thanks to all of you watching these videos. I would be nothing without you. So, have a nice day, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.